Sam's boot scraped across a slick of something viscous as she stepped into the slaughterhouse's yawning darkness. The beam of her flashlight trembling along walls webbed with ancient grime. Here, on the edge of a town, where even the weeds on the gravel lot cowered from the withering moonlight, the slaughterhouse stood as a mausoleum for the broken ambitions and bad habits of its former owners. Rusted letters across the entrance read, "Glenvale Meats." Barely decipherable, except where the paint had run like rivers of dried blood. She inhaled, regretting it instantly. The air was syrupy with rot and iron, as though oxygen had pooled with the sins of the place, never quite neutralizing. Chains hung from naked ceiling beams, dozens of them, gently swaying in an unseen breeze, their links whispering, brushing each other with the intimacy of old ghosts. On the cracked tiles underfoot, her own shadow fractured and elongated, moving with her but not quite in step. Behind her, Annie fumbled with the box of matches, hands trembling. "Jesus, do you smell that?" Annie whispered, voice lost in the vacuum of empty rooms. "Just breathe through your mouth," muttered Clay, ignoring the suggestion, thick-necked and jittery, his jaw working ceaselessly, never still, like he was chewing one last stick of gum he could never quite swallow. They all needed to be here. The lemony promised that what trickled from the faucet in the back room could burn away the rot inside them. It wasn't just a rumor. Sam had seen the scars, acid-pocked but clean, on the survivors. The old addicts with hollowed-out smiles who said the faucet it gave you purity just for the price of a finger, a toe, or worse. Sam led them, unable to say if her hunger came from the itch coiling under her skin or some deeper, unnameable want that the faucet whispered to every addict who had ever run out of luck. Her flashlight paused on a smeared handprint across a rusted locker. The print seemed fresh, wet with something more viscous and dark than blood. She swallowed, tongue dry as bone. Something dripped, irregularly, carving out a rhythm in the hush. Drip, drip, drip. Clay let out a nervous laugh as Sam's light panned along a row of slaughter hooks, pendulous and swinging, some crusted with old remnants, others shining slick as if newly anointed. "Anyone else hear that?" he murmured, shoving his hands into pockets cupped tight against his twitching thighs. Annie edged closer to Sam. "The faucet is supposed to be in the main kill room. You sure this is a good idea? Feels wrong, like the air is too heavy." The coins in Annie's pocket jingled as she worried them between her fingers. Sam glanced at her sideways, noting the glimmer of old burn marks inside her wrist. Cigarettes, maybe. Nobody ever quit for real. Not in this town, not with what hovered at the edges. The world saw Glenvale as a place people left. She and Annie and Clay were the ones who stayed, hoping for a miracle that could be bought, bartered, or bled for. A shivering gust rattled the overhead chains. The sharp staccato clatter turned Sam's nerves raw. They pushed further, down a hallway streaked with mold and gummed up with congealed fat, past tiles that squelched underfoot and doorways leading into black maws where symmetry had broken down. Sam's skin itched with the urge to scratch, to tear herself open and let the craving spill out. Their path led them to the kill room, a cathedral of dereliction. The ceiling arched high, crisscrossed with metal struts, where more chains hung in tangled clusters, some tied into grotesque accidental nooses. Floor drains gaped in the tile, lined with the brownish crust. At the far end, half in shadow, half drowned in moonlight, stood a porcelain sink, its presence incongruous in the carnage. From the faucet, something dripped. The droplets hissed as they struck the steel basin, and above the sink, the wall tiles were corroded, eaten through with irregular wounds, weeping with black-green mold. That's it, Clay breathed, his voice thick with awe and desperation. Sam stepped closer, compelled by something between curiosity and craving, seeing how the metal of the faucet gleamed with an oily sheen, alive almost, a studded barbed thing that throbbed faintly with its own internal rhythm. "Don't touch it," Annie hissed, voice cracking. But the urge to be clean, to get the rot out, to feel, if only for a stinging, burning second, the possibility of freedom drew Sam forward. Her footsteps went unheard under the growing thunder of her pulse, under the drip, drip hiss of the faucet. She reached for the knob. The metal stung her hand with cold, so sharp it might as well have been heat. The faucet twisted without resistance, and what flowed was no water. A viscous, luminous fluid, fluorescent yellow-green, syrupy, trailing threads of caustic vapor oozed from the opening, winding down her trembling fingers. The acid sizzled where it landed, scoring the porcelain, veining the basin with newly born cracks. Behind her, Clay and Annie hesitated as the reek intensified, something chemical, sweet and metallic and wrong. Sam's skin prickled where the fumes kissed her arm. She should have recoiled, should have screamed, but the promise, the red-hot, giggling certainty in her mind, told her it would fix things if she just gave in. She watched, fascinated, as the acid slithered over her knuckles, splitting her skin open in clean, precise lines. There was pain, white and cold, but riding atop it, relief, the release of all pressure. Clay snatched her arm away from the flow. His hand spasmed. He howled as the droplets licked his skin, eating fast and deep. "You stupid bitch!" he screamed, voice wobbling, but Sam would only stare at her hand, which smoked and throbbed, puckered with wounds, but she was sure of it. Cleaner somehow. The slaughterhouse shuddered. Chains rattled all around, some drifting on invisible air, others snapping taut as though pulled from above. Shadows coalesced, not quite human in shape or motion. The air soured further, so every gasp was a mouthful of spoiled copper and dead skin. Clay staggered back, cradling his mangled hand, tears bright on his cheeks. Annie shuffled closer, helpless, horror-stricken. "We have to go," she whispered, lips ghostly pale. Sam looked at her hand again. The pain was exquisite, sharpened by something new, a craving deeper than any dope, a need to dip herself again beneath the faucet's caress. A howl rose from deeper in the slaughterhouse. The noise was neither animal nor human. Its undertone thick with sibilant moisture, as if a mouthful of acid chewed through the throat that uttered it. Annie tried to pull Sam away, but Sam yanked free, drawn back to the faucet that still wept veils of acid down its face. The fixture itself had changed, grown longer, more sinuous, its metal pitted with hungry openings. It pulsed, flexing. Chains jerked. One snapped free, falling with a reverberating clang. The others twined like tentacles in the gloom. The stink of burning flesh flared as drops of acid hissed on the floor. "I need it," Sam gasped, half mad. "You don't understand. I need it." "You'll die," Annie sobbed, tears carving streaks through grime on her cheeks. She seized Sam's other wrist, fighting her, holding her in place as clay. Face gray, teeth chattering, back toward the blocked exit, where a heavy iron door had slammed itself shut. "Let me go," Sam begged, her vision doubling, the world becoming warped and slick at the edges. "I'm almost there. I can feel it." Her own words faded, replaced by the relentless drip hiss from the faucet. The acid's trail had eaten deeper into her skin, splitting her flesh with precise surgical cruelty. She could see bone, white, perfect. She wanted more, she needed more. A new fear burned in Annie's eyes. "It's alive," she whispered, voice stuttering as the faucet snaked its neck outward, stretching far beyond any plausible mechanics. Its dripping intensified. Each new bead shimmered darkly, coalescing midair before plopping to the ground and burning holes in the tile. Metal groaned as the sink bent double under the mounting weight, the floor beneath it becoming spongy and pocked. Sam felt consciousness slipping, sliding between hunger and horror. Clay was banging himself bloody against the exit, red blooming florid across dented steel, hands mangled and shaking. "We're not gonna make it. It's gonna..." His words cut off as a chain whipped around his neck, flesh singing and yanked him high, feet kicking, Blood rained in thin sheets as acid splattered from above, dissolving skin, flesh, voice. Clay's last scream was curdled, wet, and then nothing but the echo, swallowed by the cavernous room. The faucet thickened, undulating, its head nodding in slow, obscene invitation. Sam's legs would not obey. The chains pressed closer, shrieking metal on metal, forming a maze now, hemming her and Annie in. Annie, desperation glowing in her eyes, heaved Sam to the side just as another chain swung down, missing them by inches. They crashed behind the rack where cleavers hung, blackened and gummed up with generations of rust. We have to get out, Sam. Please, we'll die here. Annie whimpered, her breath coming fast, lungs heaving for air that was no longer safe. But Sam saw only the faucet, the tears of acid glistening in its outstretched maw, promising her a deliverance she almost believed in. Her ruined hand tingled with anticipation. The world narrowed to the hunger in her veins, the all-consuming need. Annie, Sam choked. I can't leave it. Chains battered the rack. One grazed Annie's arm, drawing a line of red. The faucet shuddered, its flow thickening, now spitting entire gobbets of acid, hungrily melting everything they touched. Steel groaned. The walls themselves began to bleed, streaks of viscous, iridescent liquid seeping from every crack. The slaughterhouse collapsing inward, becoming part of the creature's domain. Annie shrieked as a drop caught her ankle, burning through shoe, flesh, bone. She toppled, wailing, and Sam, half in a daze, reached for her. But the sight of the exposed muscle, the cleanliness beneath the rot, only fanned Sam's yearning. "Let me go!" Annie screamed, voice raw with agony. Sam hesitated, torn by guilt, by want, by the thick miasma clutching her brain. Each breath burned. She pressed her wounded hand against what remained of Annie's ankle in desperate comfort. The scent of cooked flesh making her gag, all was drowning in light and pain and craving. It was Annie's scream that finally broke Sam's stupor. A spatter of acid streaked across Annie's cheek, melting flesh to skull in seconds. Her eyes rolled white, and her body spasmed in the grip of the chains. "No!" Sam screamed, pushing herself up, mind clearing into shards. The faucet snout whipped toward her, jaws oozing as if grinning. It beckoned, and with every step Sam took away from Annie, the need wailed louder, chewing her up in satiety. Another chain lashed out, wrapping her leg, barbed metal tearing through jeans and skin. The pain was electric, real, grounding her, breaking through the craving. She remembered Clay's face, broken and raw. Annie's, half gone now, eyes already losing their fear in death. The urge to surrender nearly won. But Sam clung by a ragged thread to her last human instinct: escape. Clutching a cleaver, she swung at the chain, anchoring her, sparks and blood flying as she hacked herself free. The faucet howled, emitting a screech coughed up from a throat of corroded pipes. Chains writhed in a fury, dragging Annie's ruined form to the center of the room. Sam stumbled, half blind, toward the exit. The iron door groaned open just enough to show the sliver of cold night outside. The way out lay through a minefield of dripping acid and writhing chains, the floor slicked with things that were once friends. Her own hand smoked and throbbed. She forced herself forward, howling wordlessly as acid-kissed metal grazed her side, shredding her shirt and skin. Each second was a test, the scorching pain crucifying her need and her need pushing her again into the furnace. Something inside her snapped. The craving, the desperate clutch for relief became a lifeline. If you can hurt this much, you must be alive. Dragging herself along the wall, skittering on slick tile and scattering teeth and bone underfoot, Sam lunged through the breach, the chains snapping inches from her face. The faucet's final scream echoing, furious and hungry. Fresh air, a miracle, slapped her raw. Night sky, vast and pitiless, stretched beyond the slaughterhouse's edge. She staggered away, clutching her ruined hand, hitching breath after shattered breath, listening for pursuit. The silence outside was somehow more terrible than the slaughterhouse's screams. Her own breaths seemed hollow, unearned. Behind her, the chains were stilled. The faucet had retreated, guarding its bounty. Sam collapsed in the ruins of an overgrown loading dock, scraping splinters from her cheek as she curled into a ball, weeping as the pain burned her clean from the inside out. Rain started, the drops cool and gentle, stinging her wounds but refusing to wash away the stink of what she'd become. She rolled up her sleeve, her forearm puckered, throbbing, bone visible where acid had sheared away the flesh. It would never heal normally. Maybe it shouldn't. Annie and Clay, gone, reduced to stories nobody would believe. She could see their faces, fixed in that moment between hope and horror. She longed, desperately, for the faucet's hiss, the acid's embrace. Part of her wanted to go back, just once, to finish what she'd started, and really be pure, even if it meant cutting herself to the bone. That part whispered to her in the sawing wind, a nagging ache that would barely let her sleep. But the other part, the sliver that had crawled across the tiles, that had cleaved herself free, that had felt the difference between surrender and survival, grasped for meaning. She would carry the scars, wear them, remember. In the sleepless weeks that followed, Sam never spoke of the slaughterhouse. Yet she watched for the signs in others, the slumped postures, bloodied hands trembling, the hunger leaking through every word. Once, she heard about another missing junkie, then two, always disappearing near the edge of town. She'd find herself wandering at night, restless, drawn by the memory of pain and relief braided together. Sometimes, in dreams, she'd feel the liquid crawl across her skin, taste the coppery tang, smell decay and chlorine and her own burning flesh. She never used again, but neither did she heal. Her scars braided up her arm, some nights throbbing with cold, insistent ache. She kept a cleaver under her bed and woke gasping from nightmares where the chains rattled and the faucet's impossible snout reached for her in the dark. She'd survived, yes. But at what cost? The need was forever now, a mutilation deeper than acid could carve, pulsing in step with her own wounded heart. On some distant midnight, as the wind howled over desolate streets, she knew the faucet was still waiting. Still hungry, still promising a purity that never existed, one drop at a time.